Welcome to Macro Magic. I'm Sheri Damaris, and today we're going to learn simple dishes with tofu. And the reason why I'd like to teach this is because many people have been contacting me saying, I'm really excited, I just turned plant-based, but I don't have the least bit idea of what to do with tofu. It's strange looking, how do you add flavor to it? They know they want to try it because it's one of the best plant-based proteins on the planet. Japanese people have been eating it for many, many years. There is a fear of soy-based foods, but usually that's more centered around packaged processed soy. And tofu is one of the cleanest foods there is. So I oftentimes compare it to eggs, which have no fiber, and tofu has so much protein and tons of fiber and is such a good protein source for you. It balances your hormones and provides really high quality soy protein and is very delicious when you know how to cook with it. So we're going to make two dishes today. The first, I'm going to show you how to do a tofu covered French toast. And the second is a tofu scramble, which these are the two easiest recipes I know to do with tofu, other than you can slice it up and just put a little ginger and soy sauce on it in the summer. Tofu has a tremendous cooling energy to it. When you take it out of the package and crumble it, it actually freezes your hands. So with that, if you have a baby that has a high fever and you're nervous about giving them any sort of aspirin, you can just put a slice of tofu on their head. Someone falls down and has concussion or a black and blue mark, putting tofu on it will immediately shrink the bruise and help with the inflammation. So we're going to, for this recipe, this is like probably the simplest recipe you'll see in my cookbook, Macro Magic. It's just a half cup of milk, and I'm using Eden Original soy milk because it's cooked with a little piece of kombu, which helps with the mineral balance in the soy milk. So I put a half cup in the bowl. And this is a tofu that's made in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's one of the best tofus on the market right now because if you make tofu the traditional way with a substance called nigari, which is like a salt, it's simply cooked soybeans and then you add nigari, which coagulates it and makes it into a cake. And those two ingredients are very nutritious and it's super easy to digest. Now commercial tofu they're putting calcium chloride into it. And that is a high process sort of coagulant and not as healthy. So we're gonna put the half of a block of tofu. When you take tofu out of the package, you want to rinse it and store it in a glass jar. It will last for almost 2 weeks if you keep the water fresh. Change it once in a while. If your tofu's purple or out of date, or you definitely don't want to eat it. So we just crumble up the half block of tofu with a half cup of soy milk, and we're going to put a dash of cinnamon. Now there's all different varieties of making tofu French toast. Some people like putting a little apple juice in there. Some people like putting almond in there. We're going to use a handheld blender and just blend it a little bit. And this makes it sort of like the egg mixture that you use when you cook eggs. And you almost come up with a creamy mixture. So we just heat up a pan while we're doing that. Now this is a naturally non-stick pan. You have to be careful with commercial non-stick pans, Teflon. There's a lot of chemicals in there, and the chemicals come out and leach into your food. This is actually a steel pan that's made by Kosakera, and they make the steel cut knives too, so they're a really nice company. And I'm just going to put some olive oil in there to heat it up. Now you want to put a generous amount, probably about 1.5 tablespoons, simply because the bread will stick really easily with this mixture. And we're going to today use sourdough bread. So sourdough bread is different from regular bread. Regular bread has commercial yeast in it. When you eat regular bread, the yeast turns to sugar in your digestive tract and ruins the lining of your digestive tract. And that's why we have so many people with Crohn's disease problems, IBS, gluten intolerance. Their digestive tract has lost all the lining. And then we have leaky gut that happens. With sourdough, sourdough is like sauerkraut. Sourdough starter, usually you can create your own. We call them yeasty beasties. You just put a little bit of white flour with warm water. You leave it on your counter, it bubbles, and then you add to it gradually. And sourdough makes you digest the bread super well. So if you don't feel comfortable making your own sourdough bread, search out a company that just uses whole grain flours and sourdough starter. And in the Philadelphia area, we have Sweetwater. So this is one of Sweetwater's breads. They have many different flavors. They have a gluten-free version. They have a raisin cinnamon. They have seed breads. This is just basically their peasant bread. So I'm going to put that in. I'm not going to soak the bread that much because it will get really soggy, but I'm going to put it in enough to coat it with the tofu cream. And I'm going to wait till my oil is pretty hot because that way we'll make sure it doesn't stick. And you don't want the oil to smoke. And you do want to leave them in the pot until they're thoroughly cooked. If you try to flip it too soon, it will stick and the filling will come off. So when we go to serve our French toast, I'm going to take a nice plate. You can put fresh fruit on there. You can make your own syrup out of blueberries or strawberries. And today we just have plain maple syrup. And apparently they used to make dark and light. Now it's mostly all light grade, but it's still really nice. In our baking and cooking, in my cookbook, we use maple syrup, barley malt, or rice syrup. Those are the 3 sweeteners we stick with. We don't use a lot of stevia or agave or anything like that because they're much more highly processed. So tofu, basically, you can use in any sort of form. You could use it in stir fries. You can coat it with miso and let it sit overnight, and it turns into, and then rinse off the miso, and it turns into like a blue cheese, and crumble it into your salads. You can deep fry it, which you'll have like oftentimes in Chinese or Japanese restaurants. You can bake it. You can crumble it and just add a little bit of either shoyu or umeboshi vinegar and sprinkle it on salads. There's so many wonderful ways you can cook with tofu, but you've got to learn a little bit how to season it because eating it out of the package or just eating it plain is not too appetizing. So you see our toast is slowly cooking. And again, we put a lot of oil in there so it wouldn't stick. And this is a non-stick pan. On the second half of the show, I'm going to show you how to make a simple tofu scramble. And then again, we're going to season it with turmeric. Turmeric is used a lot in Ayurvedic cooking because it helps with inflammation. So a lot of people make tea out of turmeric. You'll see that it has a bright yellow color. And sometimes when you're squeezing the juice out of it, you get it on your hands. It's almost like a natural tattoo. It's hard to rinse off. So there's many different flavorings you can add to tofu to make it a little bit more tasty. Soy sauce, shoyu, is a natural soy sauce, is what we use the most to flavor tofu, and it's quick and easy. So we're going to see if our French toast is ready to flip over. Now again, you can do this in a cast iron pot as well. I just chose the non-stick pan. And you can see that it browns very similar to French toast. Now with French toast, they usually use an egg and milk and seasonings. So we're just substituting the tofu for the egg. We're going to take a nice plate. And like I said, you can serve it with all different kinds of syrups. This is just Combs organic maple syrup. And you want to always try to buy organic. We are using organic olive oil, organic maple syrup, simply because we talked in a couple shows about forever chemicals. They're using more and more chemicals, not even in the food, but in the packaging of the food. And some of them called forever chemicals don't leave your body. So if you eat them or ingest them, you think that you're discharging them, when really they're so strong and powerful, they stay in your bloodstream, in your bone marrow, and cause all sorts of health problems down the road. So we're going to take a commercial break now. When you come back, we're going to have our French toast plated, and then we're going to teach you how to make a really simple tofu scramble. Welcome back to Macro Magic. We just demonstrated a really simple French toast for those of you who love French toast. And now we're just going to pour some syrup on top. Again, it's a little bit thicker than regular eggs, but it still tastes delicious. So as we let that sit, I'm going to show you the next dish from my cookbook, Macro Magic. It's called Tofu Scramble. So many people are asking me about this. So today I'm going to show a really simple way to do it. So again, you heat up a frying pan. Today we're going to use toasted sesame oil because it has a nicer flavor. And we're just going to add some red onion that's been chopped into about 1/4 inch cubes. So I can show basically how to cut it. Is you take out the outer skin and you just chop it into 1/4 inch half moon slices and then horizontally across, and you end up with small pieces. Now for tofu scramble, you can sort of make your own ingredients, and you think about what you used to put in eggs. So if you like red peppers or green peppers or mushrooms, whatever you like in your omelet, you can do that. Just grab something to stir fry it with. And when you're stir frying your onions, you want to add a little bit of water because the oil gets super hot, and this keeps the oil temperature down, and it also helps the onions cook. So just adding a little bit of water. You can add a pinch of sea salt if you like. You are going to season it with soy sauce at the end. And if you're watching your salt, you want to be sure not to do too much salt because so many people are suffering from hypertension now from so much commercial salt. So we're going to cook these onions until they start to change in color. The red usually changes to a pink, and then we know we're ready to add our next ingredient, which will be carrots. So we cut the carrots in 1/4 inch pieces, the same size as what we cut the onion. So you just make horizontal slices of the carrot like this, and then you can cut them lengthwise and then into cubes. It's really important when you make a dish that you make all the vegetables the same size. Otherwise, you're cooking tiny little pieces of onion, big pieces of carrot. The carrot stays raw, the onion gets overcooked. So it's also more pleasant to look at. We're going to put a little bit of green in this dish. These are some fresh peas. And then, of course, our tofu. And we talked about this brand, Fresh Tofu Inc., being a really nice brand that's made in Allentown, Pennsylvania. When you open your tofu, there'll be a lot of water inside. You do want to rinse it off if you can. And then you want to store whatever's left in water in a jar. So we'll use about half of a block of tofu for the recipe. Our onions are pretty soft. I'm going to keep adding a little water so they don't burn. This is really important because if you walk away from the stove, you're going to end up with caramelized onion, and it's not going to taste too good. So then we're going to add our carrots. Now you can cover this, it makes it cook quicker, but like I said, this is like probably the most simple recipe I could show you using tofu, and something that kids love, adults love. This is another step, and you don't have to do this step. These are fresh turmeric. So they look like ginger root, actually, and they're usually sold in natural food stores or farmers markets. You can buy dried turmeric, which is just like in a spice bottle. And what you do, this is a fine porcelain grater. You just simply grate the turmeric, and this will give the tofu a yellow color, sort of like scrambled eggs. And you don't have to take the skin off. You can just grind it. And once you get the grounds, you're going to squeeze the juice onto the tofu towards the end of cooking it. These graters are great for grating ginger and turmeric, and then also sometimes other, like carrots. You have to be careful with your clothes because turmeric will stain your hands, it'll stain the insides of your palms, and it will stain your clothes too. But they're finding all sorts of great things with turmeric now, that you can make tea out of it, add it to soups. And if you're suffering from any sort of inflammation, turmeric is really good at taking inflammation out of the body. I'm going to add a little bit more water to our carrots and onion while they cook. And I don't know about you, but I always like to keep it super simple when I come home and I'm really tired. I don't like to think too much about, what am I eating or having to prepare. And like I said, tofu is probably the easiest thing to pull out of your refrigerator and just season. And you could fry the slices and put them in a sandwich with some sauerkraut, avocado, on sourdough bread, which would be nice. Okay, so we're going to put the peas in next. You can use frozen peas or fresh peas. These are organic. And then you can simply crumble the tofu on top. Now once you add the tofu, you want to put the soy sauce as a flavoring, because that soy sauce takes about 10 minutes to cook into the tofu and make it have some flavor. We're going to add a little bit more tofu. Depending on how much tofu you like in your tofu scramble. Now, I've seen all sorts of variations of this recipe. Some people have put like cut up melon in there. Some people put smoked salmon. Some people, like I said, they make it sort of like an omelet, so they'll put peppers and onions, like similar to what you would order for an omelet. Put a little bit more water. Now we're going to flavor the tofu. Now this is all done by taste. You don't want to over salt your dishes, but you don't want to under flavor them either. So depending on the people in your house, anybody sensitive to too much salt, you want to make it mild. If you're cooking with someone, especially who's changing from an animal food diet into a vegan diet and they're used to rich and salty foods, you don't want to make it too weak. So we added about a teaspoon of soy sauce, or shoyu, which is natural soy sauce. We're just going to simmer that. As you can see, it looks almost like scrambled eggs. And now we're going to add the grated turmeric. So that's going to give it the yellow flavor, sort of the yellow flavor of eggs. So we're going to squeeze that into the dish. Now turmeric has a very nice, mild, sort of pungent flavor. If you put it in too soon, that flavor cooks out, so that's why we're adding it at the end. You can also add some grated ginger if you like. And you can see your hands turn orange. So we'll just keep cooking that. We have a little bit of water on the bottom so it doesn't stick. But you don't want to put too much water because it'll become diluted and it won't have much flavor to the dish. Now this you can serve in a burrito, like a wrap sandwich, or you can serve as a side dish, or you can just, you know, have some for breakfast with your oatmeal. Like I said, it's a wonderful protein. It has no fat in it. No fat at all. And when you're eating lots of eggs and cheese, that's almost 100% fat and no fiber. So it's actually opposite than eggs in terms of nutrition. And currently they're, you know, shutting down some of the egg farms because of the bird flu and things like this. And this is a great alternative to try. So we're going to plate it up on one of our nice plates. We can actually serve it with our tofu French toast. Let's move that over. It's super colorful. You can put like a kale leaf on there for some decoration. And like I said, it's a great substitute for eggs. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our programs. We currently have 4 levels of cooking classes online now. And you can read about them at the macrobioticglobalinstitute.com and sign up. If you're interested in the beginner class, you can take the beginner class, which has a lot of information from my cookbook on how to set up your kitchen, where to find ingredients, some real quick cooking recipes with miso soup and brown rice. And then you can move on through the levels. And level 1 is all about nutrition. Level 2 is about learning about the energetics of foods, the 2 pairs of opposites, yin and yang. And then the next levels after that are all about the 5 transformations, which is another way to explain how the 2 pairs of opposites of energy are separated into 5 different levels. And each of those 5 levels correspond to the seasons of the year, the times of day, and you can begin to really understand how to make your cooking very healing for any type of illness. So please join me and join our mailing list. It's www.macromagic.com to get some free recipes, free workshops, hear what we're up to, see some of our TV episodes. And we really hope to see you in class. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.